Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be going into these two books by the artist Tiger Tateishi, I think is how you pronounce the last name. This is an artist that I just became aware of a couple weeks ago and then immediately ordered the books. For some reason, just showed up on my Instagram and I started following 50 Watts Books, who printed this one and just seems to be distributing this one. But they seem to have gotten the rights to at least distribute and reprint some of Tiger Tateishi's work. And now that I'm looking at it, I don't know if this is someone who's been talked about and influential all along. I've never heard the name, or if this is someone that people are rediscovering now. But it seems to me to kind of coincide with this explosion of like abstract, poetic comics that focus on what I keep calling the poetics of form. Tateishi's stuff really seems to have that poetics of form, the interest in transformation built into his work. There are oftentimes, like in this book, which is called Cheat Sheets, it's often used in like a gag strip sense, like you can see on this first, on the cover here is just one of the gags, where a lot of Tateishi's work is taking advantage of the dimensional fuckery that you can have when you're trying to represent like 3 dimensions on a 2-dimensional plane. So here he's able to extrapolate the square into a cube and then like walk into it. So you almost have this 4th dimensional thing where he's walking into another reality and you see him getting cut off by the planes of this thing here. But then Tateishi has this character grab the box and it makes it look like this is the front of the box now. And so you get this like strange, it's almost like this character's behind, and then when he like right here he looks like he's behind, so when he grabs what looks like the front of the box, it almost makes it look like the back of the box, and the whole box inverts, and this looks now like the front instead of this, which is a common illusion you get with perspective. And then he of course like grabs it and it all becomes just 2-dimensional again, and this character comes out all squished and compressed 2-dimensionally as well. So it's always gag work, but it's also very, very poetics of form based, and very, very based on illusions that you get when you compress 2 or 4 dimensions, or 3 or 4 dimensions into 2 dimensions. So that to me seems like this guy must be getting a boom of re-interest based on all of the poetics of form stuff that's been going on, like the editions Métier and whatnot. So really, really important, awesome artist. This guy was working starting in like the mid-60s, and a lot of this stuff was done through the 60s, 70s, and 80s, I think. So I'll just show you. They're all like one-page gag strips pretty much, but just to give you a sense of the kind of fun that he's having. Like here the characters walk by, and then you see that the cow is like see-through, and so they grab the cow, and the cow's just a line. So now it's being treated as a line in a picture plane, and they rearrange it and make a dinosaur. Just funny little gags like this. Here, as this thing grows past the horizon line chops it off and lifts it up. So a lot of the dimensional play that I really got excited about in Paul Kirchner's The Bus and his other works seems to be at play here as well. I think this would have come before Kirchner's work, so I don't know if he would have been aware of that, or any of the heavy metal artists were. I just don't know how much of Tiger Tateishi's legend that's kind of being presented in these books. There's not much really essay information either. I don't know how influential he actually was at the time, or if this is somebody that's being rediscovered now. But if anyone has more information, I'd be really curious on that. There's some really nauseous effects like this, where the guy goes in and the horizon line spins him as he goes through the arc. Just those kinds of plays that Kirchner would do. There's a couple 2-page gags like here, again taking advantage of like 2 and 3 dimensions intermingling. This guy's gonna attack, so this guy puts his pole down, but that winds up making like a portal rather than just a pole. And then this character like has someone has somehow sliced reality, and you can see reality all broken up because these archers are shooting arrows and slicing up the picture plane and making it fall apart. So it's just really clever, fun stuff. There's a lot of like Jim Woodring in here as well, I feel like. and also some Sergio Aragona's. I think like on things like this, you can really see the Sergio Aragona's sense of humor, the kind of brevity of the cartooning, the yeah, just the stylization of the cartooning. This is what Buzza Wuzza. This is for you. You said all manga looks alike. Here's a mangaka that's doing some wildly different stuff that I think is very much in line with people like Aragones, Jim Woodring, Paul Kirchner, stuff like that. There's also some really deep thoughts being expressed in a small amount of space about like a Zen outlook, maybe. Like here you have this character that's emptied themselves out so much and had such an ego death that the like reality starts bleeding into their eyes, and they like become reality to the extent that they consume it, and instead of like them dying, they've kind of killed the universe. Like that when you become one with the universe, it's not necessarily you dissolving into the universe but you absorbing it. So he's playing with that really back and forth like postmodern subversion of some of these philosophical ideas really smart in a really small amount of space, and I think that's really fun to look at. Like this is one of these as well, where these characters are sitting there and they basically are mentally projecting onto these screens. The screens seem to become like the things they fear, and this character gets eaten by what he fears, and this character eats what he fears, and then they all worship this guy because he's the master. So that like eat or be eaten by your fears, keeping them external rather than bringing them inside of you and becoming one with them is kind of the better way to go. And to put that into 6 panels is a hell of a thing. I mean, maybe I'm over interpreting, but I don't think so. This is just another one of these really fun visuals here. This guy meditating, and it chops these people up and abstracts them into this wild Picasso thing. You can see that Tateishi's also really influenced by Surrealists. He moved to Milan, Italy at some point and was there for a long time, according to the very small amount of biographical information in the other book. And there's a lot of other famous like European paintings referenced in that other book as well. So you see the influence on Picasso, and then this guy goes and puts reality back straight. Just visuals like that all throughout. There's some that you see show up here in black and white, and then you'll see again in the Moon Tracks book in full color. So I think that's really interesting. I had to mark this one because I've always loved the Moebius strip spread from Promethea, where the characters walk around it in an endless loop, and to see someone else playing with the Moebius strip as a comic element where these landscapes are kind of constantly just rolling out over one another to show like not geological time as a stratum, like back here he has this in a strata, but as some kind of constant process. I think it's all so smart and all so well done in such a small space. I also started thinking like, okay, this all not only speaks to spatial fuckery, but time-based fuckery as well. I was thinking, what happens if you try and take this mentality to a movie? I know it's still a flat two-dimensional plane on a movie, but the time moves by in a different way than in comics. Like, how much of this could you get away with in film? Like here, where it looks like they're just waving something, and then all of a sudden it becomes like, no, it's wiping the window. What would that feel like in a movie? Or could you actually create illusions like this in real physical space in actual 3 dimensions? And how could you talk about time in higher dimensions, different dimensions in a 3-dimensional space? I don't know that I've ever encountered art that really has this kind of whimsical play with form in 3 dimensions as you get in 2 dimensions. So I'd be really curious to see that, if people have recommendations of films that play this kind of stuff as well. And then just, I mean, look at that. The abstraction in that is so much fun. Obviously, these kids have drank some really good juice and gone on a wild trip. So Tateishi, working in the 60s and 70s, was obviously involved in the psychedelic scene. That seems pretty obvious to me. This is just another, I think, really beautiful one where when you're talking about poetics of form, it's almost pure form and transformation, but also gets in this like Carl Sagan-ish point of the micro macro, where this thing kind of folds in on itself and seems like it becomes very small, and then you see all these balls pinging around inside of it, almost like getting down to the atomic level, and then it moves back. So this thing that like rolls out, unfolds, swallows itself. Just really beautiful poetics of form stuff. So that's all the black and white. Then Moon Tracks here has a bunch of color work in it. I left all of this on for the video. I really don't like this, whatever this is. I don't feel like I need it. And then the nice printing on this, I think, is really nice. But I also like the hardcover underneath. And as anyone who's watched the channel knows, I don't really like dust covers on my stuff. It's probably going to drive someone crazy that this limited edition thing I might just chuck. I might keep the dust cover. There's no way I'm keeping this thing. But really seeing some of his sketches here is cool as well. These are all for June 1st, 1974. You see some of these things being done here in pencil. And then this has, most of it's in color, and they're paintings. And you can see these are huge paintings that he was working on. I mean, these are taller than him. So they're 7, 8 feet tall paintings that he's doing. And they're presented as paintings in galleries, but then you would also get them printed here like in a comic. So when you're looking at these like, oh, this is a really nice painted comic, that's one thing. But to understand that this thing that's working so well on the page is actually a 7 or 8 foot tall painting is stunning. And I've always wanted to do that, bring together my interest in painting with my interest in comics. I don't think I've ever seen anyone actually, maybe Chris Ware did some stuff when he was in school, I think, but to see someone really doing comics as painting and doing it so well I don't think I've ever seen that before, and that's really worth talking about and celebrating. And I'm not talking about like Alex Ross doing painted comics and stuff. I'm talking about someone who's making comics on canvas, on gigantic pieces of canvas, and showing them as like this is a painting. It's not meant for print necessarily. It can be, but it's meant as a painting on a wall. And then when you start introducing color, all of that poetics of form that Tateishi's playing with in his black and white work really just gets pushed to the next level. Like here you have this character and reality just breaks around him and becomes totally like this cubist, futurist, abstract, non-representational thing. Then you get back to like this more Duchampian cubism as this UFO like breaks through reality. And this idea of like UFOs as interdimensional travelers and stuff, this I think is the best visual representation I've ever seen of something folding in and out of dimensions and taking someone else and like leaving these crackles along. The awareness of the tradition of modernist art, Western modernist art, especially in Tateishi's work, combined with kind of the Eastern philosophies that he seems to be very influenced by, is just makes for a stunning combination. Here you can see the one that I ended the other book on now being done again in color. So a lot of those things that were released as comics then became almost like just preliminary sketches for these paintings, it seems like. And I just absolutely gorgeous stuff all the way throughout. Here's one again playing with dimension in a way that's not just dimensional shenanigans in the 2 and 3D, but I think implying, you know, higher dimensional stuff than that. Like here, as they just go into all these multi-sided figures, and it starts expanding to where it just becomes like not a room, but a vortex. There's something about that really speaks to me, seemingly at a higher level. You can see a lot of other paintings in the background. He's referencing something like a Odalisque here, or maybe a Matisse piece. There's just a lot of really cool stuff. This one here has these characters walk by that look like they're maybe out of a Magritte, kind of. They go through, they all have these holes in their chest. They go through each other like ghosts, and then they stretch out what looks like, I'm not sure if it is, but it at least looks like an Yves Tanguy painting. So Tateishi's obviously really, really educated in early modernism up through surrealism, and that's a huge influence on his work. There are these sections in here as well. I don't know if these look like they're actually just ink, like still litho prints, but they're recreating the look of, these would have been screen prints, it looks like. And this is done on a non-glossy paper. It's kind of a nice like rice papery feel, and the way the ink saturates into them, even though it does look like it's just a 4-color printing process going on, there's a lot of, especially in the yellows and blues, there's a lot of sense of solidity to these, where it does feel almost like a screen print tipped into the book because you change the paper. And really just beautiful play with color and form again on these. The intensity and saturation of the colors is really, really beautiful in here. And they're not, you can see it's changing from glossy paper, but still being saturated. I would have loved to have seen the whole book printed like this. I think the glossy takes away a little bit from it. The other thing is that some of this stuff starts to look computer generated to me, but like the latest work in here is like the early 90s. So this is still, in the 70s or 80s that he's doing these things. And it really feels like contemporary kind of vaporwave. I guess that's 10 years ago now, but it feels like that kind of thing. Some more real just play with perspective too, where you've got this like music going along the background here, or like this sound wave going along as these characters are dancing, and then the boat is just following that, riding along the top of the trees here. So beautiful sense of rhythm. Here again, this is a reference to I'm gonna mess up the guy's name, Chirico painting. I think is how do you say that? But another surrealist painter, a very famous piece. So he's playing also with like taking other people's work and then animating them a bit, which I think is a really, really fun idea. There's this bit in the middle. I think this is just a price tag. There's this bit in the middle that is like a sketchbook, and it has a little bit of writing in it. The nice thing is that there's always an English translation and about whatever's in here. But like I said, there wasn't too much real biographical information. I didn't get a lot. It was just talking about what he does and basically saying the same things I'm saying about dimensional trickery. And it's like, yeah, I could see that by looking at it. I wanted to, in this case, I actually did want a little bit more history on the guy. Some really beautiful stuff like this. Again, that seems almost like has computer animation kind of twists and distortions in it. I know you could get that with a photocopier as well, but it just looks kind of computer done to me. I also think it's very much kind of, I don't know when Alex Gray would have started, but to me it seems like it's like a proto Alex Gray with the psychedelics and the colors and the patterns going through. This wild alien thing here that seems to be influencing everyone's dreams. Just beautiful stuff. And then you get some more of these like kind of faux screen prints in the back. This really seems to me to be linked to Evan M. Cohen's work. Again, I don't know if he's ever seen Tiger Tateishi or is influenced by it, but the kind of lyrical, poetic of form that's in Evan Cohen's work shows up in this. Here, just some of like the Nicolas Nade and these other edition métier people who are really, really just formalists that are working with the poetics of form. So I imagine that's part of like the re-interest in this artist's work, is there's a lot of other people exploring these avenues now, and this guy's really killing it a long time ago. I would like to see a lot of those people that I've reviewed working with poetics of form move to color, because I think some of these things that you're getting in color, when you're talking about formal elements, you take out color and you're taking out one of the big ones. I know there's plenty to be done just with perspective trickery and shape and line and things like that, but I would like to see more and more of that in color as well. So I just, this stuff is absolutely stunning. I don't know why this is somebody that's not just up there with the big names that we've all heard about forever. I feel like I'm pretty well versed in comics. I do my best to dig around, and this is not a name I've ever heard until a few weeks ago. And thank goodness. I really think that this is somebody that should be on everybody's tongues at all times. So if you have not gone and gotten any of Tiger Tateishi's work, definitely do so. I think this Moon Tracks with the color work, if you can only get one, is the book to get. There's another larger book that seems like maybe it's just a combination of these two that was at 50 watts. It was a little hard to know what all I would need to get everything without getting a lot of overlap. So if other people are like way more Tiger Tateishi fans, and they could tell me if there are other books out there that will round out the collection. I'd really appreciate that as well, because, dude, this guy's so good. Plaza by Yokoyama Yuichi. This is translated by Ryan Holmberg and is very large for a manga, so that's a really cool feature of this book, this standard manga size. And this is just a 200 some odd page representation of what Yokoyama Yuichi thinks of the Carnival parade. And he's just made this like relentlessly loud and rhythmic book that pushes all kinds of amazing boundaries of what comics and manga are, and we could not recommend this book more.
Make sure to like, smash that subscribe button, and ring that bell.